Evan collects his best friend's belongings after he's declared dead, not being found after 7 consecutive years of search, which makes Evan find the game in his belongings, which reveals that he, alongside many others, had been overtaken by a monstrous entity who feeds on people's weaknesses and mental trauma. Hi folks, I'm R, your narrator. If you have any game suggestions or theories, send them my way on my Twitter or subreddit. Keep in mind that this video will have spoilers, and with that in mind, let's dive in. Leo Williams goes missing under mysterious circumstances after visiting a lakeside, who becomes officially declared dead after 7 years of relentless search for him. Ava Williams, his mother, who starts giving up hope for finding her son, gives Leo's best friend, Evan, some of his personal belongings which she thought he would want Evan to have. As Evan packs up some boxes left over from Leo, he drives home in his truck, unboxing all of the boxes until he stumbles upon a video game labeled as the Fourth World. Not knowing anything about the game, he puts it right into his computer and starts playing a side-scroller game where he controls a game character weirdly looking similar to his friend Leo, meeting other mysterious characters in an isolated forest, who warn him about a hostile entity known as the Man in the Coat. As Evan controls the game character, reaching the Man in the Coat, the game starts glitching, breaking the computer when a horrifying face appears on the screen with a buffering bar mentioning the progress of this entity breaking through. This soon comes to an abrupt stop when the room Evan was in distorts into an unreal way, with instructions on the computer screen telling Evan to leave his room. As soon as he does so, he finds himself in a borrowed tunnel with headboards informing him of his responsibilities. They explain how Evan is now in a game where he needs to complete 4 levels infested with hostile entities, as otherwise he would face a fate worse than death. Before starting the first level, known as the Bridge, a headboard reads a quote from someone called Tom Thomas, who mentions how he was in a bad state mentally, on how he was sad crossing a bridge having dark thoughts, an allegory of how this mysterious person was unable to move on from a tragedy despite passing a bridge. More visual and auditory symbolisms reveal how this person known as Tom was finding it difficult to cope. Experiencing this harrowing experience in a surreal manner, Evan finishes this level, reaching level 2, with a headboard reading how Tom at times wished he could just close his eyes and find himself in a better place. This level incorporates a mechanic of closing his eyes to evade a dark monstrous entity, an allegory of dark thoughts and isolation. The level is a long spiral descending down in a staircase, with posters of a missing person with wide opened eyes depicting how Tom went missing suddenly, and despite how he wished to close his eyes and move on from the tragedy he suffered from, his eyes were wide open, a metaphor of how he could never move on and simply go to a better place by closing his eyes, as he was always reminded of the tragedy and saw it even more clearly. Reaching the bottom of the staircase, Evan closes his eyes and reopens them in hopes of finding himself out of this dark level, just to find himself surrounded by doors, each labeled with one of the 7 deadly sins, depicting how Tom, instead of being able to move on from his troubling past memory, found himself spiraling down into a suffocating state where he reduced into committing or feeling the 7 deadly sins as a direct result of the tragedy that he faced. Evan in here is forced to close the ever-opening doors to prevent the monsters of these sins catch up to him and trap him in this horrifying nightmare-fueled level. Managing to do so, Evan finds himself back in the tunnel, reaching level 3, which has a headboard yet again, this time unveiling what the tragedy was that Tom couldn't move on from. Tom mentions how a divorce with his wife caused him to go into a state of depressive isolation, trying relentlessly to crawl back to his wife, with every time trying, feeling darkness crawling after him and closing in on him. This level places Evan in an oppressive environment trapped in a ventilation system, where he keeps crawling but coming across a divorce agreement file. The more he crawls, the darker it gets, with a distorted faced entity crawling after him, depicting the darkness that was consuming Tom after his divorce and isolation. Evan manages to narrowly escape this mind-born entity, getting back to the tunnel, reaching level number 4. Another headboard reveals how Tom in fact is the notorious Man in the code who designed this entire game after the divorce and the darkness he faced, finding some solitude and a way of escape, busying himself with the development of this game. However, this reveals how instead of the game helping him to move on, it allowed the darkness of his mind possess the game, trapping him in a never-ending nightmare, repeating the worst stages of his past, going through all the levels of grief and pain of losing his wife and facing isolation. Entering level number 4, known as the Fourth World, Evan meets the first character in an identical manner where he first started the game, playing it in a side-scrolling manner, who informs Evan that all of these game characters are in fact real humans who have been trapped within the game, with Evan being their only chance of escaping. This game character continues that Tom Thomas, including this game, was corrupted by the entity, seemingly a supernatural being latching itself to people who had faced trauma and extreme isolation, who transformed Tom's game into an endless loop where Tom relives his darkest time in life. The only way this world would end and free the trapped souls is to free Tom Thomas and help him move on from his darkness. The first victim, or trapped soul, is then revealed to be Barney Gray, who has been missing since 1992. The second victim is then revealed to have been Carlos Bull, being missing since 1993, last being seen buying a game, being none other than the cursed Fourth World game. The third victim is then shown to be someone called Dave Owens, who has been missing since 1994, last being seen in his bedroom, seemingly having been busy playing the game, just like Evan. And the fourth victim is then shown to be Evan's best friend, Leo Williams, who has been missing since 1995, last seen playing a game on his laptop by a lake. This reveals that the game is taking place in 2002, 7 years after Leo went missing in 1995. The game character of Leo is also seen to be the character Evan was controlling while playing the game, being the only person who could manage reaching a high level, almost encountering the man in the coat before being trapped. The guiding game character reappears again, informing Evan that all these missing people have been trapped in the game, with Evan being the only person who could save them now. He further explains there's a glitch in the game where he could find a door to the real world, where he has a very short time before he's kicked back to the game again, never able to escape. Using his time in the real world, Evan could go to the place where Leo was pulled into the game, as Leo managed to go the furthest in the game, almost reaching the man in the coat. Using this glitch and trick, Evan could fast forward to the highest level, possibly facing the man in the coat and defeating him. As he does so, Evan reaches Leo's level, seeing him isolated in a dark spot, begging Evan to help him before he's taken by an invisible force. As Evan carries on the path, he reaches a dark lake, which is the final level, with the man in the coat emerging out of the water, acting as the final boss in a soul game. Just as Evan tries to defeat him, he realizes he's no match to him, with the man in the coat about to kill him, when an unknown force glitches the game, giving Evan some time to act. The force informs Evan he needs to free the corrupted souls in order to free Tom and defeat the man in the coat. The souls became corrupted, being the demonic entities in each level, acting as the inner demons of Tom in his past life. Evan, collecting the first orb, he finds himself in a large maze level, being level 32, known as Despair, depicting how passing the fourth level, which was initially said to be the only levels, the victim gave up on level 32, facing Despair. Evan, after some time, finds Barney Gray, who has been trapped for many years, almost giving up on hope. But with Evan's reassurance, he decides to help him in order to go back home. Collecting the second orb, seemingly orbs that have been feeding the monstrous entity, Evan finds himself in an obscured level known as Dementia, an appropriate level which Carlos Bull, the second victim, has forgotten, feeling lost, trapped in an empty void with the shadow of a gramophone. Evan, managing to find the record, he places it on the gramophone, which makes Carlos remember a happy memory in his past, which he mentions it warms his soul, helping him get freed from this void. Collecting the next orb, Evan enters level 125, entering as player number 2 just like the previous levels, a level known as Depression, appropriately set in an isolated cabin in the middle of a misty forest. In there, he finds Dave Owens, who doesn't want the company of anyone, being used to this horrible feeling which he doesn't know how to move on from. A relentless and persistent Evan keeps on staying there and offering his help, saying that things will eventually get better, which helps Dave put his trust in him, allowing himself not to be isolated anymore, being freed to help Evan in destroying the man in the code. These levels depict all these souls have been targeted and placed in levels where they had weaknesses in, with the monster feeding on their misery and pain, using their weaknesses against them, putting them in a horrible mental state that they had trouble battling. Barney having trouble with continuity and pushing forward with so many failures, being stuck in despair. Carlos being trapped in a level known as dementia, possibly suffering from dementia and forgetfulness. And Dave suffering from isolation, placed in a level where no one could reach him. Finally, reaching an unknown level, collecting the 4th orb. This level is known as the Grandson's Safe Zone. At the end of this dark forest, Evan comes across Leo, who is sitting in front of a tombstone, asking if he has been forgotten. This reveals that Leo has always feared being forgotten and lonely, a way this monstrous entity used to trap Leo in his mind, using the darkness of his mind, putting him in front of a representation of his death, being a tombstone of him. As Evan mentions how he never forgot about Leo, Leo lights up with joy, deciding to help Evan in his quest taking down this demonic entity. Using all of these orbs representing each corrupted soul, they attack the monster, being freed from their own darkness in their respective minds, freeing the final soul, Tom Thomas, who thanks Evan for finally freeing him and destroying the corruption. Tom frees all of the trapped souls and sends them to their homes, telling Evan that now that the corruption has been destroyed, he can finally rest in peace in his creation, the game where he found joy and happiness in his darkest time. With that, all the souls go back to their respective homes, with a newspaper article revealing how Leo has been found alive after being missing for 7 years. And that's it for this video, folks. If you enjoyed it, you can stay tuned for more by hitting on the subscribe button and the notification bell. It's been your host Star. Until the next video, have a fantastic day.